Hello and welcome to our first weekend roundup. As you saw from our very first intro, this is going to be talking about all the big games that have happened this weekend. First game week of the season. Very exciting stuff. Let's start with Arsenal. Last season they faced, was it Brentford? Was
Brentford, yeah.
Bit catastrophic. But now they're against a tricky Palace side. Matt, tell me, what were your thoughts about the game?
I thought it was a great performance by Arsenal. Away from home, they started well.
Yeah.
First half hour, they definitely looked sharper than Palace. I know Palace had a slightly disrupted pre-season compared to Arsenal, but we came out the blocks flying, which I think you have to do away from home. And then sort of managed the game at 1-0 for long periods. Palace were on top of us in terms of possession, but didn't really we never really allowed them many opportunities to get that goal back.
Yep. Was there any players in particular that you thought stood out?
Yes, Saliba was excellent on debut. I mean, Arsenal fans have been waiting for this guy. I mean, that picture you got of him there in the shirt, that's from 2 years ago. That's how long we've been waiting for this guy to play. And he had a great season at Marseille last year, so he's not come from nowhere. But that there'd always be the criticism, we could have used him last year, blah blah blah. But Arteta's been very cautious with him in terms of throwing him in, not putting him in there too early, and I think it's really going to pay off this year. I really do. He looks the part.
Yep, he looks brilliant. I guess, Saliba was a key guy for Arsenal in terms of defence. But anyone in Palace that caught your eye?
Well, and Anderson was unbelievable for Palace defensively. He made 5 tackles, 2 interceptions there. But the long ball, I mean, he attempted 50 long balls. That's incredible. Like, long ball, anything over 30 yards, he attempted 50, and 82% completion rate. That's absurd. I know Carragher and Neville mentioned it a lot on Friday Night Football on Sky Sports, but
yep.
I did not think it was 50 long ball. It's unbelievable. That's unbelievable numbers from a centre back.
Yeah, I definitely could see him being snipped up next season if he continues this kind of vein of form.
Potentially. I mean, let's see how Palace do. I think Palace might surprise a few people this year.
With Palace losing, do you think there's any negative view on them, or is this Arsenal just unplayable for the first
half? I don't think Arsenal were unplayable. I think Arsenal were just sharper out the blocks. But you can see in the second half, Palace grew into the game. Zaha and Ayew were really good on both wings. Just need to be a bit more clinical in the final third, and it is still something that's an issue with them. Edouard and Mateta, they still haven't quite found out which guy's going to be their number 9, who's going to get the goals.
Yeah, very true. And I guess bringing me to JC, like, what did you think of the match? Anyone stood out for you, or?
Yeah, first of all, I thought it was a phenomenal display by Arsenal. Like, I think this time last year when they faced against Brentford, it was like night and day. Like, from the get-go, pressing, lots of energy, flew into tackles at pretty much all points of the game. Absolutely, I don't want to say dominated, but they definitely felt in control of the vast majority of the game. But for me, like, I think that Zinchenko really stood out as left back, and Sharon's got some stats in here now, but he passed quite a lot. Second in the team, only behind Gabriel.
Yep.
And it was really interesting to see their kind of setup, because I think they had Zinchenko on the left, like White on the right, which is very hard to say, Gabriel and Saliba, and obviously kind of the other 3 defenders kind of left it as a 3 when Zinchenko pushed up, and it kind of reminded me of like Cancelo for City, and we'll probably talk about them later, but very, very similar, where there was just heaps and heaps of space on that left side, and Zinchenko was just absolutely bombing up the left-hand side. Lots of passes in the box as well. I think I saw a stat where he got maybe first or second in passes into the final third, and It was just I just thought it was very impressive considering that he has been in the squad for what, Matt, like 2 weeks now?
Yeah,
almost?
2 or 3 weeks. Joined sort of mid to late pre-season. Yeah, he did look composed, and I did notice him and Xhaka interchanging, very fluid. They did it a number of times. There's good chemistry in that Arsenal team. They're on it to start the season.
They're very on it.
And they seem like very organised in set pieces. Obviously, Zinchenko got the header down towards Martinelli for the goal. So they've clearly been worked on that. It was definitely kind of pitch side training thing. Yeah. When it was supposed to go to Martinelli, I'm not 100% sure, but ultimately it did work. And I just think Zinchenko could possibly be a really good left back. The only issue I think with him is that at times he did get bullied, especially when it was coming to like balls over the top. Like I honestly can't remember him winning a lot in the box in the Arsenal defense.
Yeah, I think that is why he ended up coming off quite late in that second half. He was starting to get bullied by Ayew in particular. But but he gives Arsenal options, and Arsenal can sort of pick their poison with their fullbacks a bit more now. Tierney and Zinchenko give them slightly different options, and it can only be a good thing for Arsenal.
Yeah, it's a good thing they bring up Tierney as well, Matt. I'd love to get your opinion. Like, what do you think the minutes look like in terms of that swap between Zinchenko and Tierney? Like,
I think if Tierney's fit, I think he's predominantly first choice. I still think that. I still think it's his position, but his issue has been staying fit for long periods of time. It's almost certain that Tierney will have a run, then he'll pick up a knock, and Zinchenko will get a run. It's not going to be sort of long spells on the sideline, I think, for either player.
Yeah. I do think Zinchenko is probably I think Arteta's first pick in that left centre mid role. He's like that perfect player they want. He's mobile, great passing, less rush than Xhaka, but also covers the left space when, let's say, Tierney or whoever's going to be on the left side bombs up forward.
Yeah, definitely seems more of a natural fit in Arteta's system, which is essentially Guardiola's system. It's the same system, but yeah, he's a natural fit, so he will play a lot, no doubt about it.
So that gets. Sorry, JC.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, just one other thing. Like that's that I said. Like he passes into attacking third of Crystal defense. Like he was joined with Xhaka with 4. So I think he just really showed his kind of importance. I think it's a really good first game from Zinchenko. Like I think he did really well.
And from my kind of pick of the game was Ben White, the opposite side, the right back.
Yeah,
Ben White normally is a centre back throughout last season, but with Saliba coming in, forming that partnership with Gabriel, probably will be the mainstay. I think Ben White did incredibly well on the right back to contain Zaha. As you can see from the stats from interception and tackles, one of the highest in that game week. He's got range of passing. He's calm. He's more calm on the right as a right back than a centre back. He's a bit too rash sometimes with slides and blocks, but on the right back he seems way more composed to deal with those kind of channels, and it's great to see it. And you're always thinking on the right hand side, he's only got Tomiyasu, and if this kind of injury kind of persists, I think Ben White's a great pick for that place. Yeah,
it suddenly feels like Arsenal have just got depth, which they desperately needed at the back end of last season, and probably cost them down the stretch. He does look equally comfortable at right back, and maybe playing for Arsenal in that system, maybe that might suit him more down the line in general.
Yeah,
but we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, because Tomiyasu is a great pick, so it's going to be interesting how they battle out. I guess that brings up the second game, which was Liverpool versus Fulham. And this was a shock, I guess. Everyone thought Liverpool was going to steamroll them, but I think Fulham had different ideas. What do you think of the match, JC?
Yeah, from the very, very start, you knew kind of what Fulham were trying to do, or what they actually did. Like, just a pile under pressure. Like, I don't think they played like that a couple of seasons ago. Like, they were aggressive. They pressured. They knew their triggers to press. They were very impressive, and I think they had a leader and a front man in Mitrovic, where they can channel their attack through as well. And
Yep.
he's one striker who I think really stood out. Like there were times where he put Van Dijk on the floor, like he won the penalty. He was very good. But obviously like Andreas as well, very, very good. You know, I think he's a funny player because at times I didn't quite see what he was meant to do, but then he'll whip in a ball from the box or cross it in, or grab the ball and just take it forward. Like I think he did very good against like Liverpool and all that high line they did. Like I think Fulham, and we'll talk about Liverpool more, but like I think Fulham were also very, very, very impressive.
Yep, I agree. Like I think Pereira had that kind of free role that allowed Mitrovic to sort of hold the two centre backs off. And like you said, the pressing was I did not see that coming. I actually did not see Fulham coming off that strongly against Liverpool on game week 1.
Yeah, I think that's an important point to mention. Fulham really looked up for it, and hopefully that's a sign of things to come. Hopefully that's not just, hey, this is Liverpool, we have to step it up, because the last couple of times they've been in the Premier League, Fulham, you know, I always moan about them and Norwich because it feels like the same thing. They feel like a soft touch that can play some nice football, but you know, it's just not going to keep them in the division.
Yep.
They really did play with great intensity, you know, against Liverpool. One key player for me was Tete, the right back. 5 tackles, 6 interceptions. I mean, those are really good defensive numbers. But he also got the assist for one of the goals. He was up and down that right flank all game long, it seemed. Or certainly when he was on the pitch, and Fulham were flying. You know, they did ride their luck at times. You know, it's you know, I think Liverpool hit the post with Diaz. Diaz hit the post. Henderson, I think, hit the bar late on as well. So everyone sort of doom and gloom on Liverpool. Not really. They still look like the Liverpool that we've come to expect. And a big one was Darwin Núñez off the bench. This is 2 weeks in a row now where he's come off the bench and suddenly Liverpool look like a completely different team.
Yep.
He has energy. He seems to lift everyone around him. Grabbed a goal and assist on Premier League debut. You know, I think we can bury this. You know, Núñez. You know, worrying about how he's going to adapt to the Premier League. I think he's going to be just fine.
Yeah, I think what was interesting for me on Núñez is, one, just when he came on, completely different approach, was that Salah on the wing, cross it in. But I think the interesting thing for me is like Núñez is not afraid, or didn't seem to be afraid of running in front of defenders or for his goal, like taking the flick on, and I think it did kind of deflect back off him, off the Fulham defender. But I think there's still something to be said for taking your chances when they come. Like
and just, you know, there was a couple of little back heel attempts, things like that. He's not lacking for confidence.
Yeah, that's it.
And you know, look, I think it is. This is a product of, you know, the Liverpool team in general, that players can come into these teams and they have that room to just sort of be themselves. There isn't too much pressure. There's so much quality around them that if that's what it takes, they can be carried for a few games. But it actually very rarely comes to that. Diaz, we saw come in and really hit the ground running quickly. It seems the same with Núñez. I've been really impressed with him.
Yep, I agree. Sorry, Jason. Yeah, carry on.
No, you go.
Yeah, but I agree with all your points about Núñez. I think what I thought was interesting is when Núñez came on and Harvey Elliott came on, Elliott went to the far right, Salah went more in, Trent became more of a central midfielder, and he was popping balls in behind straight to Núñez. I think that's going to be a great partnership. You know, we saw that with him with Mane sometimes, but I think Núñez occupying the central space, I think it's going to suit Trent quite a bit. I think on Fulham's side, I think alongside Mitrovic and the right-hand side, I think they were great. But I think the key signing with Palhinha, who came in, I think he was like 20 million, and he was just a bundle of energy. He was pressing in the midfield. I didn't think Thiago, Firmino, who dropped deep, couldn't seem to get the ball out of feet. Paulinho was just straight up there, as you can see in the table in the mid-third tackles versus mid-third pressures. He's up there. He's one of the best midfielders in this game week, and it's a credit to Fulham to having signing a big player from the Portuguese league, and then integrate them quite nicely as a player role instead of just having an expensive signing for the sake of it.
Yeah, and I think they identified Thiago as a guy that, hey, let's not let this guy settle.
Yeah,
because we've seen what he can do when you allow him to start dictating what happens in a game. It's over. Like he can do as he pleases. We've seen that.
Yeah. So I guess the next game was Bournemouth versus Villa. So in this game, it was a bit of a stalemate. But what I was surprised with Bournemouth, they came with a back five formation. They normally play 4-3-3 or 4-2-3-1, but they come with the back five and the two big forwards, Solanke and Moore. That's quite old school. I was quite that's quite interesting because we had Sean Dyche last season. Now he's gone, and now we got this kind of old school football back. So before I thought Bournemouth were probably going to get relegated. Probably I predicted them to be 20th. Obviously, just one game week, so I can't say much. But I thought if they continue with this kind of play, I always think teams with the five at the back and play this kind of football sort of do kind of well in the Premier League. And I think the one guy who impressed me for Bournemouth, apart from the two defenders that we'll talk about afterwards, is Tanvir. So he's the brother of I think James Tanvir for Rangers. He did 67 take-ons, 3 chances created, and most fouls drawn in the whole of the game week. I think he was electric. He's a new signing. He's only been here for a week, I think, with the Bournemouth team.
Yeah, they only signed him very recently. So for him to have that sort of impact, really impressive.
Yeah, and especially in a team full of kind of long balls, he's a good set piece taker as well. So I'll be very interested to see where he comes up next. What about you, Matt? Who were the key players that you saw in Bournemouth?
For Bournemouth, it was 2 of the centre-backs really caught my eye. Kelly and Mepham. Mm-hmm. 28 clearances between them over the course of the game. That's a staggering number.
Yeah.
That is really staggering. I mean, and Bournemouth, Scott Parker didn't sound too confident coming into this season. He was talking about a team that's way behind where they should be, way short on numbers. Mm-hmm. They haven't really made any signings of any note until Tavernier. So this was a real surprise. This result. Villa, really disappointing.
Yep.
It's really, and at the back end of last season they were inconsistent. There were flashes, there were moments, but if this continues into the start of this season, I think there's going to be a bit of pressure on Gerrard because there was an expectation that they were going to start sort of transforming into a much better team this season, and it is only one game, but they really struggled to create any chances of any note. Yeah,
very true. JC,
sorry, go on.
JC, what do you think of Aston Villa's chances this season? Did you take anything from this game?
To be honest, I didn't really catch this one, to be honest. So I wasn't able to see the full thing. I saw a couple of the highlights, and I think it's really interesting that I think he the thing that kind of stood out to me was that he started with Ings.
Yep.
And for me, when I think of Villa, I always just think of Watkins because you get that high pressure, you just get endless running in the box, and Ings is probably the better finisher and the better out and out striker. But I do think Ings without, Aston Villa without Watkins is kind of tough.
That was odd because Gerrard did seem to prefer Watkins at the back end of last season, and Ings, he's a good finisher, but I've always preferred him in a 2. Mm-hmm. I'm not convinced about him leading the line in like a 4-3-3. So I was surprised at that. But the bigger concern from Villa's point of view is Bailey, Coutinho, they've got Buendia as well, and they can't create any chances against Bournemouth.
Yeah.
All right, the Bournemouth centre backs had a great game, a lot of clearances, but you know, we're talking about Coutinho, a world class player here. Buendia and Bailey are supposed to be, you know, massive talents, and it's just not happening for those guys.
Yeah, they haven't really gelled or clicked, and it'd be interesting to see as the season progresses. Jared will have to tweak something. I think he's tried his 4-3-3. He's got Kamara now, who should take the ball.
Yeah, I was going to mention Kamara. I think he's going to be a key player for Villa this season, but we'll see. We'll see. It's not a good start.
No,
it's really not.
In terms of other, oh, sorry, Jesse, you were going to say?
Yeah, I was just fascinated by actually looking at the lineup, and did Mings not start?
No. So looks like Diego Carlos is going to start. He's been brought in on that left-hand side of the defense. John McGinn has taken the captaincy now as well. Mings was not stripped of the captaincy. That suggests it was a misdemeanor or something. It's more, you know, he's fallen down in the pecking order. I think that's the way they're sort of phrasing it.
Which I think is a shame because...
yeah, I mean, they're playing it down. Mings and Gerrard have both obviously played it down, but he does feel like a confidence player, Tyrone Mings, and that can't help him. For his development-wise, not good.
And both their goals were from set pieces, and Mings is a great header of the ball. And Diego Carlos, as feisty as he is, I don't think he's going to be good as Mings in the air. So they're going to lose that kind of set piece defense. And they were already, I think, in the lower tables of set piece XG against.
Yeah. I mean, South American defenders definitely give you something. It's not always composure, but you know, we'll see how it gets on, because there is a lot of optimism about that signing.
I guess that brings us to our next match, Leeds vs Wolves. I thought this was quite an interesting match. You know, we saw Wolves doing quite well in pre-season, and we saw Leeds from last season kind of resurgence on the march. So it's kind of a good gauge of where these teams are, and yeah, Leeds managed to pull it off. What are your thoughts, Matt, on that game?
This was an interesting one. You know, Leeds, they obviously struggled at the back end of last season. It got a bit desperate for them, but I do remember when Jesse Marsh first came in, there was a massive improvement in their general sort of play. Defensively, they were a bit more solid, and they still maintain that attacking intent. You know, I think they missed, you know, guys like Bamford and Phillips, obviously, but it felt more like that exciting Leeds team that came into the league under Bielsa. Lots of energy, lots of pressing, lots of counter. They've got some really exciting young players. I really like some of the guys they've brought in. Struick was awesome for them at left back. 6 tackles, 4 interceptions, 4 blocks. Great defensive performance, and their style of play still does lend itself to, you know, giving up quite a lot of chances.
Yep.
So they need those sort of performances from their defenders. But I think they've improved their back line gradually as the longer they've been in the Premier League.
Yeah, definitely. I could definitely see that. In terms of JC, like, who was the stand-up performers in Wolves, and who caught your eye as a big fan of who?
With Pedro Neto, the guy that never gets assists, but gets the assist that gets the assist. I think. No, I still think he is one of Wolves' better players. I get frustrated sometimes, not as like a player that watch Wolves religiously, but as like kind of an FPL manager. Like, he's always the guy that passes to the guy who gets the assist, or he takes a corner that someone knocks down that gets the goal, or whatever it may be. But yeah, he played on the one of the wings like we thought. I don't know what happened to Jimenez. I'm not sure if he's injured or whatever, but he's injured.
Yep,
that's fair enough. So the Korean striker started up front. I can't remember his name, but yeah, I mean, again, I didn't watch the game, but it would have been interesting to see more and see how kind of he develops in the team as well, coming back from injury.
Yeah, Wolves have obviously changed their formation this year quite notably. They've gone more for 4-2-3-1. They lined up in at Leeds. They certainly seem to create more chances. They weren't a side that created many chances last season, so that's a positive for them. And Ait Nouri at left back looked really good going forward for them.
Yep,
he looked really good. He did score an own goal, unfortunately, but going forward, he looked really good. But it's goals. They can create all the chances they want, but JC alluded to Neto doesn't ever seem to get on the end of things. He seems to be involved in creating things, but Hwang, it didn't really happen for him last season. Didn't really get going. Jimenez hasn't looked the same player since his injury.
Yeah,
Podence reminds me quite a lot of Trossard, actually, where for a couple of weeks looks a proper player, and then just sort of disappears for a few games. And that is why I worry about Wolves. They gave up a lot more chances against Leeds.
Yeah, so they're kind of reverting from the defensive kind of first approach to try to play more expansive, but it's not there yet, and they don't have that striker, so no focal point.
Yeah, and the worry is that they don't score enough goals. They still don't score enough goals, but they concede a lot more.
Yeah,
that's why I worried about them this season, and that might be the case with them going forward this season.
That's a good point. Like, and we talk about it on break, but like Cody leaving is massive. It's huge.
It's a weird one. It's not often you let your club captain leave on loan to a Premier League rival.
Mm-hmm. And it like, I think whenever we think about Cody, and whenever like I see interviews or he's doing press conferences, wherever the players always speak about like his communication and his ability to just talk. And I remember
it was something that was quite noticeable during the COVID era of no fans. All you could hear is him barking instructions for 90 minutes.
Exactly.
It was borderline unlistenable at times, but
yeah,
he is a quality player. So I was surprised at that.
Accent.
Yeah.
And obviously, like Kilman's still there, who's actually kind of developed quite well in the last season.
Well.
He's developed. I didn't know he actually came from like futsal. He played for England, so he clearly has like technical skill.
Yeah.
But he is on the younger edge. I'm just trying to quickly look up how old he is. 1997. So yeah, 23, 25-ish. So still like young, but I don't think he is that type of communicative person as Cody was. And I think this year, as Matt said, like I feel like they will.
He's just a leader. He's just a leader, and you're letting a leader walk out the door. You better be replacing him with someone. I know they have got leaders in that dressing room, but that's a big voice to go.
Yeah, they replaced him with Nathan Collins from Burnley.
Yeah.
So he's not much he's got some presence. He's got the aerial ability. Plays in the back four, I guess. But in terms of for Leeds, one player was really impressive. There was quite a few, but Harrison for me. When he's on it, the former Man City player, he's on it. He did the 8 progressive carries. I think 4 were into the box. As you can see from the chart here, him, Bruno, and Saint-Maximin created the most shot-creating actions this week with 7. That's a crazy amount of number. And most of the times, the wingers in this kind of system, they get forgotten about because they're always pressing. They're always kind of doing the hot work rate. And it's normally some central players that reaps the benefits. But he got the assist in the end, and if he continues this kind of vein and form, sky's the limit for this guy.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned it just before the season about how he's very inconsistent.
Yeah,
Jack Harrison, you can't rely on him for long periods, but I like him. He has the right mentality. He always seems up for it, and you can forgive players that sometimes have those sort of inconsistent streaks about their end product and attacking qualities. I do like him as a player.
Yeah, he's never wanted for lack of trying either. So
no, definitely not.
that's all adheres to the fans. So I guess speaking of fans, newly promoted Nottingham Forest have come up, and they were against Newcastle away. This was a bit of a domination from what I saw of the game. Newcastle were just constantly pressurizing them, and Forest maybe it was a bit of a awakening call. Not sure if you want to talk about your main man, Matt.
Yeah, Saint Maximin. I mean, 21 progressive carries.
That's insane.
21 times he picked up the ball and carried it, attacked 10 yards closer to the opposition's goal with the ball. That's a crazy number when you really break it down like that. I don't think I've ever seen it that high in a single game. And I was quite critical of Saint Maximin ahead of the season. I thought that he was perfect, big fish in a small pond kind of player, rather than for the sort of team that we think Newcastle are going to morph into this year. But yeah, he looked up for it. He's a great player to watch when he's in form. He can frustrate you sometimes with that end product because he sometimes he just tries one skill too many, one player take on too many. But man, he's exciting to watch, and he gets the crowd going anytime he gets the ball.
Yep, for definite. And the player that I wanted to highlight, and then let's talk about Bruno, shall we?
Yeah, he's been doing this since he came into the Premier League. He didn't need any bedding in time at all.
No, now playing as predominantly as number 6 in the system that against Forest. 10 progressive carries from as a number 6 progressive passes, 7 shot creations, all from number 6, where he normally was receiving the ball from deep and just dictating the play, and he still does the work. 5 tackles and interceptions.
Yeah, I just think everything they do goes through him.
Yep.
And they've been relatively quiet in the transfer market from kind of what we thought they might do. I think FFP is sort of limiting what they can throw in one window. Midfield, they've sort of left alone because I think Bruno was the signing for them. And he can probably carry their midfield. Willock and Joe Linton are, they're not top end players. Joe Linton is just sort of, they're making it work with him. They've found the role for him. He did look really good.
Yeah, he did too bad
against Forest. Yeah, I mean this is what I expect to see now from Newcastle. They've completely transformed from the team they were a year ago.
Yep. So JC, what do you think about Newcastle's and Nottingham's trajectory for the rest of the time, rest of the season?
Yeah, I think Forest. I think if they don't have goals in them, like they're in real chance going back down. You've got kind of a lot of quality now, like in the lower half of the table, like lots of teams kind of that might have been good last year may have not get like the signings or not do anything in the transfer window this season. Like, yeah, it'll be tough for them to stay up. But
they need goals. They need to find goals from somewhere.
Yeah.
We've seen teams like Norwich last year. They had goals in Timu Pukki. He was a quality goal scorer for them. They had that, and they still struggled to stay in the division. They need goals because I think they've got a decent team. They need them to gel quickly. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of new pieces in there that they've got to put together quite quickly.
Yep.
So it might be a rough start for Forest.
Yeah, hopefully we see them pick up more points. It's nice to see them in the Premier League. So
definitely.
On to the next game was Spurs versus Southampton. After Ward-Prowse scored his goal and I saw it on my phone, I was like, it's Spurs. Classic Spurs. We thought they were going to probably compete, and then in the end they pulled through. In terms of players, is there anyone you want to speak about, JC?
Yeah, I think Kane's obviously a big one. I think it's quite interesting to see how he's kind of developed in this Conte squad, on Conte 11. Like, he seems to be pushing slightly deeper, playing a bit more as a playmaker, but obviously kind of getting the shots in, but allowing that space for Son and Kulusevski to do their thing.
Yeah.
Like, he got no goals today, but he did have a good few chances, and obviously he's got a hard game next week, but I still have no doubt that he'll score 15, 20 goals this season.
This is probably just August Kane form, isn't it?
Yeah.
Classic Harry Kane August form.
I also did realize on I also did realize on the highlights he's missing a bit of hair. I thought it's the hairline is really
it has been heading south for a few years quietly, but
it's probably part of his lean program. He's got leaner, less hair, more streamlined. He's thinking about the future, guys.
You see it all the time though, but by January, watch it miraculously reappear. He'll be down to Belgravia, don't worry about it.
He'll get Conte's Conte.
Oh yeah, Conte, yeah, of course.
But yeah,
really handed him a referral card.
But yeah, as you were saying, JC, yeah, as you see from the position, Kane was literally playing as attacking midfield, and he's one of those forwards that can do it so well. You might as well use him in there. And what I thought was quite interesting was Son, Kulusevski, and the two wing backs. They were just bombing forward at any chance they got. They have that kind of security with the two centre mids now, Romero, Dyer, Davies. Actually, none of the new signings played, but it was still a bit of a revolution, to be fair.
That was the biggest surprise. We spent a lot of the time talking about how well Tottenham have done in the transfer market. We think they've made some really good signings, improved the depth of the squad, and yet it was the same 11 that we saw for much of the back end of last season. Emerson's a player that really, really caught my eye because he's been someone that everyone sort of expects is just going to be shipped out of there. He got quite a lot of criticism last season, which I don't think was overly fair. Every time I watched him, he's a very good one-on-one defender. Tackling wise, he's very, very good. He can get caught out of position at times, but he's playing as a wing back. That is going to happen. They're going to get caught high up the pitch at times. A big criticism last year was his end product, and in the game on Saturday, 4 shot creating actions, 2 goal creating actions. Mm-hmm. That's the way to sort of answer your critics on that front.
And got an assist as well, end product.
Yeah, I like him. I think there's a player there. I'm not sure what the criticism is.
Well, I mean, the assist wasn't it the one that bounced off Salisu? Was that?
Yeah, but don't worry about that. An assist is an assist.
It was like the corner flag. but yeah, I know what you mean. Like you got to put it in to get the assist or the goal or whatever. But yeah, I think the wing backs for Spurs, and it's nice to know that they have like options.
Yeah, they've got more options. The result didn't really surprise me. The number of goals didn't surprise me. The quality of Spurs play didn't really surprise me.
No.
And to be honest, how disappointing Southampton were didn't really surprise me either.
One of those teams, yeah.
They're moving to 3. It feels like every team's either moving to 3 at the back, or this, wing backs, or moving to a 4-3-3 or something. Yeah. It feels like there's 2 formations in the Premier League right now, and you're either playing one of them. But
I think they probably played the 5 at the back to contain the wing backs.
Yeah, maybe to sort of match up. But
Gineppo never. He's a winger, really. Call out against Kulusevski and Royale. He's got done up.
I mean, if you're gonna do it properly.
Yeah.
And it just felt like a bit forced from Southampton. Don't know, getting a bit too cute with it. I just don't see it with Southampton this year. I don't see where that spark is going to come from.
The one player I was impressed. No. Well, Ward-Prowse, he does what Ward-Prowse does, but
yeah,
Lavia, he was quite good in the game. I think he's a new signing. Well, I've never seen him before, but
yeah, I think he is. Yeah,
he's strong. I think he's going to be one of those players that get picked up probably in a couple of seasons because he's got all the attributes of like Basuma. He's got the kind of passing range, and he's got 9 final third passes in this game, and he was barely involved in this match. Spurs were running rampant, but he's someone to look out for in terms of between these 2 teams.
Yeah, they need a spark from somewhere. Ward-Prowse, like you mentioned, I think he's going to be crucial. He always is crucial for Southampton. He is their player. If they struggle again, could you see him moving? I don't know.
Possibly.
I feel like he's one of those players that are so ingrained in Southampton that even if for whatever reason they would get relegated, he would stay with them. I feel like he feels like he's just.
You think he'll be another Letitia? Minus
maybe.
the conspiracy theories, maybe.
I don't know. It just feels like he's just Southampton through and through.
Yeah, he does seem like that. And I like Southampton. They've been a club that's done it the right way for the last 10 years. I don't want to see him struggle, but at the moment, I don't see where it's coming from.
From one struggling team to another last season was Everton, and they hosted Chelsea, third place team. What did we were going to expect from Everton? They put up a fight, I guess, but did Chelsea create as much as they could have? Who was their most creative player, Matt?
Yeah, it was weirdly quiet game, but Reece James was at his best for Chelsea, and Tuchel actually admitted after the game that James and Chilwell weren't quite 100% ready for this one, so that's a bit scary for opponents, considering how well Reece James played, certainly going forward. Yeah, I mean, the result doesn't surprise me. It's two teams that I didn't particularly feel great about coming into the season for completely different reasons. But Chelsea just simply have more quality. Even with all the problems that we think are going on behind the scenes, it might be all rosy at Chelsea for all we know, but we think there's slight issues, but they've got quality players, and you know, Sterling was sharp as well. He looked sharp. So yeah, this is basically what I expected from this game.
Yeah, I think Tuchel's had a few signings of this forward line, Lukaku, and Sterling. He's gonna have to make one of these players kind of work to be the focal point of this team.
Yes,
he's had the chances to get the attackers in. He's had the defensive unit for a while now sorted, but eventually it's going to come down to he needs to take the next level up with this team.
Well, it is going to come down to goals. You're right.
Yeah,
and they can't rely on Chilwell and James to have a great few weeks and score a bunch of goals. That's not sustainable.
Yeah,
from wing backs. Yeah, Werner's gone now. Timo Werner's gone.
Yeah.
I think back to Germany, right? So
yeah, back to Leipzig.
There's talks of them moving for Aubameyang. Well, if he comes, I'm not too sure about that. I mean, he's still a guy that can score goals. I'm just not sure he really suits Chelsea's system. I'm not sure if there is a number 9 out there that does.
It's true. It's hard.
They've I don't know. They always seem to struggle in that position.
What about you, JC? What are your thoughts of Everton and Chelsea?
I think similar to Spurs, Chelsea have just got two phenomenal wing backs in the system that's built for them. I think Chilwell, he didn't play for a vast majority of last season. I think he missed pretty much the whole thing.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's good to see him playing because I think Chilwell's a great player. I always find it funny watching Chilwell because a lot of the times he's in the box. A lot of the times he's there, like with the strikers. Like he won the penalty, didn't he? With the Curry challenge, and yeah, I don't know. Like Matt just said, you know, wing back scoring goals isn't sustainable, but I just feel like in this day and age where like they're so high up, you know, someone like James just whipping balls in. I feel like those two will get a lot of goals, but. To your point as well, like I think up front, Mount, Sterling, and Havertz, there doesn't seem to be like aggression or someone that could just bully someone or someone that'll just take it to defenders.
Yeah,
you got three like really good technical players, but where's your Haaland, your Nunes, like that type of
I mean, realistically, a couple of those guys you mentioned there have to score 10 to 15 goals in the league this season. And Sterling's shown he's capable in a Man City side. It might be different in a Chelsea side.
They had Lukaku, who banged in goals in Inter. They came in and did pretty much
That's
next to
true.
nothing. So it's
Yeah,
be interesting to see where they go next. In terms of the signing that I was quite impressed with, and it's another defensive signing by Tuchel, is Koulibaly.
yeah.
They lost Rudiger, and you're thinking, how important is Rudiger in that three centre back system? Who are they going to replace it? And it seems almost a like for like at the moment with Koulibaly. As you can see from this heat map, he was so high up, and that's exactly what Rudiger did. Brought the ball out, and even for the first goal, or the only goal for the penalty, he's the one that played the ball into Chilwell, and it was a great cut through ball there. So
Yeah, that's what Rudiger was doing all last season. It sort of went under the radar that Chelsea got Koulibaly, and I think a big part of the reason for that is people accept. Yeah, they've just basically replaced Rudiger. They've just gone and replaced him. That's it. Like, I don't think anyone's too concerned that will he adapt? Is he going to be good enough? I think everyone pretty much knows he will be.
Yeah.
I have no problem with him.
He had 9 final third passes, 6 progressive carries, and I think 3 into the final third. It was exactly the same as Sterling, and he's playing how deep?
Yeah,
so it'd be good to see how he progresses on now.
There were a few impressive performances for Chelsea, on the face of it. There's some good stats pretty much across the board. Kante had a good game, Jorginho as well. But I think it perhaps is more a product of the team they faced.
Oh yeah, true.
On Saturday, Everton look a hot mess. I feel bad about Southampton. I feel even worse about Everton.
Yeah, I'm not sure where they're going to go because
Calvert-Lewin's out for I'm not sure how long, but he's injured. And he's coming off a bad season, an interrupted season last year as well. I'm worried for them.
And they've gone to a back 5 system as well. But in terms of their striker, they don't have anyone. They use Anthony Gordon up front. How's he meant to lead the charge? That's
a concern. Well, I mean, the two options, they had Anthony Gordon, who I do like Gordon as a player, but I like him out wide.
Yeah.
And then their plan B option was Dele Alli, and there was one bit where he received the ball in the box. It seemed like he took an extra touch, looked slow, and just got tackled easily, and he just looks a shadow of the player that he once was. I just don't know what's happened to Dele Alli at all.
From one top Big Six team to another, Man United hosted Brighton. A team we had Erik ten Hag first game at Old Trafford, and pre-season went so well. We were singing "Sky's the Moon" or "Moon's the Sky," whatever you want to say. And unfortunately, Brighton came in with and bust United. A 2-1 probably doesn't really reflect how it panned out. JC, what were your thoughts about the game as a Man United fan?
Yeah, just first off, kudos to Brighton and Potter. That was a stellar performance from the team. They looked well drilled. They knew what they were doing. They each had their roles, and despite losing some big names, they did United there. So obviously United didn't start with Ronaldo, didn't have a traditional striker. So we had Fernandes and McTominay as Fred as the pivot, and then Rashford, Sancho on either side of Eriksen. Obviously, Eriksen started up front, but I think as the game progressed, both Fernandes and Eriksen just had to go deeper and deeper and deeper because they weren't getting the balls because Fred and McTominay just couldn't withstand the pressure or the structure from Brighton. And Sean, I put up this quote from good old Roy Keane, and I think it just rings true. The players just weren't good enough. Particularly, I felt the first 10 minutes were strong. I think United always seemed to start off. You could feel the energy. You could feel the players want to play. I feel personally the players want to play.
Yep.
But then as they start to lose control, I feel like they just have a mental collapse and just the plans out the window. McTominay just... I think he is a decent player. I just don't think he's the player that United need right now, especially when you pair up with Fred. And I personally really like Fred.
They need someone to control that midfield.
Exactly.
And I don't think Matone is that guy. I think you're right. I think he's a good player. I think he's a good squad player, potentially for United. But what you said there about United start games well, and then once things start not going to plan, it looks like they panic and things start to fall apart. And I think you're spot on there, because that reminds me exactly of Arsenal, and how it's been for us the last 2 or 3 years. It's the same thing. I see the United job that Ten Hag has as the exact same one as the Arsenal job that Arteta walked into a couple of years ago. The one thing I'll say about this game, we're all jumping on Manchester United's, giving Brighton credit. Brighton have been a good team for the last 2 or 3 years. They're a team in ascension. They lose good players year in, year out, and Graham Potter seems to be developing something of a reputation to coaching up players. The team is greater than the sum of its parts consistently, and should we be surprised that a good team went to a team that's certainly in transition, that needs a rebuild, that has so many issues at the moment, and won this game? I don't think it's altogether that surprising. I think this is what we're going to see from United this season. I think it's going to be inconsistent. I think there will be moments where you look at Ten Hag and you think, yes, this is the guy. You can see what he's trying to do here, but I think there's going to be days like this where it's just a bad day at the office.
Was there any player that you saw from Brighton's side that hurt Man United especially?
Well, I think it's the obvious one is Gross. 2 goals.
Yeah.
2 goals, 6 progressive passes, 3 shot creating actions. I mean, he's been really good for them since he came to the club. Pascal Gross, consistent, and I keep thinking he's going to get bypassed with all these new guys coming in, but he's been really consistent for them. And I think he played really well when Brighton won at the Amex against United at the back end of last season as well.
Yep. It seems to be the trio of Gross or either Trossard and this man, Danny Welbeck, who came to haunt
that guy
my
Welbs.
dreams. Yeah, that guy Welbs. We talk about, JT, we mentioned about no striker in our system. Here, Danny Welbeck, a former Man United Academy player, showing what a striker does.
I hope you're not suggesting that Danny Welbeck's the answer.
No comment. No, I'm joking. But yeah, what he performed as his role was running in behind. Of course, Maguire and Martinez, a lot of trouble. Junior's dynamo runs. Trossard and Gross kept finding him. Casido also kept finding him. As you can see here, he had 5 shots, the second highest of the game week, owing to Maddison. And he was threatening, and he got the assist at the end as well for the first goal, and the second goal he played a big part of it. I think what was interesting to note for Brighton's side was they normally play at the back. This time they kind of hoofed it, almost direct kind of play into the left-hand side channel, and they won the second balls because they know Man United cannot progress the ball under a press, a structured press. I think it's going to be a bit worrying because every team's going to look at this and be like, oh, let's have them, let them have the ball. Let De Gea have the ball. Let Dalot have the ball. Let Maguire have the ball. We really need that number 6 to kind of someone to pick up the ball and progress the play because our forwards are isolated.
Yeah, like that whole point of the pivot is to one, shield the defense, right, but also be an option, be a release valve for the defense when you have the ball at the back. And whilst I think Fred is decent, I just don't think he kind of necessarily gets in the right positions for Maguire or Martinez.
Yeah. The problem is him and McTominay both feel like sort of secondary midfielders, a sort of
in a sense.
support midfielder with, a quality player next to them. And that quality player is just missing 6. I've heard James Garner thrown around a lot.
I would love that.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, that seems a better option than some of the panic buys that are being thrown around.
Yeah. We linked with Artanovic. And I think
and
and I think we already bought Rabiot. I think we've already done a deal for that Rabiot.
Have we signed him? Oh no.
I think so, yeah.
Supposedly terms have been agreed on a deal. Yeah, it just reeks of desperation. I don't know. Maybe that guy is central to Ten Hag's future plans, but it really doesn't strike me as being the case.
It would suggest to me that since this is the first time it's come up straight after Brighton lost, it definitely was not in the plan.
Don't keep secrets well. There's a lot of leaks at that club.
No, but like on your point of science, just want to talk about Martinez, who played on the left side of Maguire. Yep. Obviously, Maguire is playing on that left side.
Prior to this,
for since he's been at United, and I think so. For one, he got bullied a lot, and I think that'll be a struggle against the bigger teams, which I'm scared of. But what I do like about him is like he seemed quite confident. I remember he had the ball at the back. It must have been Welbeck or another Brighton player was like charging at him whilst the ball was kind of being dashed at him by another player, and he just he stopped the ball where he stood, let the Brighton player fly past him, and just went on his merry way.
There seems to be a tenacity about his play.
Yeah, absolutely. And
I've spoken about South American defenders already in this, and he seems to epitomise it. But because there was a rash moment where he was maybe quite fortunate not to give away a penalty, but I don't think centre back is United's issue at the moment.
Mm-hmm. I think it'll be interesting to see how that relationship develops. I think there could be something decent there.
Is Varane really third choice centre back?
Might be even fourth.
I'm not too sure about that. Guy that's won multiple Champions Leagues.
But I guess it's a player role of the player now, isn't it? With Ten Hag coming in. It's what can they do to fit Ten Hag's system? And Ten Hag's system is all about progressing the ball to get the 1v1 for Rashford and Sancho, which they actually got a few times more than last season. But Rashford wasn't really on it. Sancho created a few passing options, but without number 9, who's going to stretch that defense?
Yeah. I mean, Rashford needs a goal or goals. he needs that confidence back because he looks a shadow of the player that we know he can be.
He's just lacking in confidence. Exactly that. Like I think he had 2 great chances with probably high XG right at the end. Like I think what he needs is somebody else to help him
shoulder the burden.
Yeah, exactly. Like maybe even like a run from Shaw, just overlap, just so he can have a bit more space or do whatever he needs. But he does look isolated at times, and it doesn't look like he had a plan around him.
Yeah.
Having said that, Bruno, I did notice a lot. Bruno doing Bruno things. I'm not actually sure he knows the plan because every time I see him, he's just running full pace up front, which is a good thing considering we didn't have a striker.
He seems to thrive more in a mercurial sort of a role.
Totally.
Where the onus is very much on him to do something special.
Yeah. And
more often than not, he will do that. Ten Hag seems to have more of a disciplined sort of tactical approach. So on paper, it doesn't seem a natural fit, but he's one of United's best players right now. I think you put an arm around him and just let him do his thing.
Yeah. Completely agree on Bruno. But I think Ten Hag's system, while it is structured, it will probably bring Bruno into the positions that he wants to be in. Like in that kind of, they call it zone 14, just outside the box, where he can slip in passes or crosses from the wide right. So it might suit him, but I think the structure, especially from back to front, needs to improve. Like I think De Gea is a problem. The shot stopping wasn't that great against Brighton, and that's the only reason he's in this team, because he's not here for collecting balls, passing. He hasn't got any of the other attributes but shot stopping. So if that's not on to par, it's a bit of a worry. But also it's beginning of the season, and he might save us one game.
a big worry is also Henderson seems to have burned his bridges at United. So it's not just, hey, De Gea's not the guy. It's, hey, we need to find who's the guy and probably need to spend a lot of money to bring him in.
Which is a big shame because I quite liked Henderson. In the few games, he wasn't the excellent shot stopper, but he did everything else quite well.
Yeah.
But I guess that brings us to our next game, which was Leicester and Brentford. Leicester have been trying to be picked apart, I guess. Maddison looks like he might go to Newcastle. Fofana might be going to Chelsea. They haven't made any signings, and as classic as Brendan Rodgers is and a great manager he is, he's got a bit of a squad that needs a bit of resurgence, and he's against Brentford in their second season. In terms of the key player from my side, I think it's always going to be when Vardy's not on form. Probably Maddison. He had 6 shots, 8 progressive passes, 6 progressive carries, 1 assist. I think most of it comes from set pieces, but whenever they do seem to have a good chance, it normally comes from Maddison.
Yeah, it does. And, there is a bit of speculation around Maddison, and Leicester are pretty steadfast in wanting him to stay. I think they've pretty much accepted that Tielemans might go by the end of the window. They seem pretty confident that Arsenal or someone's going to come in at the end of the window and nab him. Fofana, I think if the price is right, they'll probably have to budge. But Maddison's too important. If they lost Maddison, this could be a very difficult season for Leicester. It is a bit doom and gloom with Leicester at the moment, but I do like Dewsbury Hall. Nice star around him there in the player ratings. He's breakout season last year. He's the kind of player they need to build around, because it looks like they need to sell quite a few players, and they're heading for something of a rebuild.
Yeah, very true. And especially with Dewsbury Hall, Maddison, Tielemans, they have very good long shots. That's a frightening 3 if you're going to edge of the box. And I think most of their shots were actually outside the box. I don't know if it sees here.
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, 9 of them.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Dewsbury Hall scored a cracking goal. Yeah, I'm surprised they're still persevering with this wing-back system at Leicester. It really didn't suit them last year. And yeah, I don't like them in that formation. I really don't. They play some great football in 4-3-3 or 4-2-3-1. Brendan Rodgers was pretty adaptable, and I just don't think he has. I don't think he trusts, his defense, and I think that's gone for this sort of defensive formation.
I think that came to light during the match. They were 2-0 up.
Yeah,
just turned up one more gear, and it was 2-2 at the end of the day.
Brentford have this about them, these little spells.
JC, in terms of players that you saw from Brentford side, is anyone of note?
Yeah, just before going to get on your points on defense, for Leicester, missing Schmeichel.
Oh yeah,
that's
true.
That's a massive deal. We talk about Cody, massive communicator. He's hollering, screaming, getting the defense organized, and yeah, I think along with being a quality shot stopper, I think the second goal that the Silva scored, I think that got at least would have gotten an attempt saved by Schmeichel. But yeah, like you guys said, it'll be really tough to not concede goals because they were already pretty leaky last season due to injuries, minded. But yeah, they will leak goals. But yeah, in terms of Brentford, I think similar to last year, they just play with real ferocity. I think for me, we spoke about it on the one of the podcasts a couple of weeks ago, but I just like Tony. I just think he is just an out and out goal scorer. He does what he needs to get in good positions, and I really think if he can be more consistent in the goals, that he probably won't get into the World Cup, but I definitely will see or would want to see him move on from Brentford because I think he's a really good player.
Yeah, I like Brentford. They all seem to have a plan. They always seem to be able to weather storms within games. They have these, as I said, they have these spells. They seem to have these 15, 20-minute spells in games where they just completely overwhelm the opposition. They've done it a few times last year, and they did it today in the second, or on Saturday in the second half of it, on Sunday, sorry, in the second half of this game. And but partly due to the fragility of this Leicester side, which we sort of alluded to. But good to see this from Brentford, because I felt like the loss of Eriksen was going to really hurt them.
Yeah.
But that's a good starter point at Leicester.
Was there any other midfielders you think took the baton?
Yeah, Janelt, I thought, had a great game. Good in out of possession, 3 tackles, 4 interceptions, but also really good going forward as well. 3 shot creating actions, 6 progressive carries. I always go back to that game he had at Stamford Bridge last year. He was superb in that game, and really, I think epitomizes Brentford's not really heralded, not really celebrated. They seem to have a bunch of these under the radar players that Thomas Frank just has playing really, really well, better than the sum of its parts.
Yeah, as much as the same quote they used for Brighton. That's quite depth for that. Like, it's great third man runs.
Yeah,
Potter can do the same kind of thing with these kind of players. He brings the best profile for the role.
Definitely.
And I guess that brings us to our last game of the season. I think it was...
last game of the...
Oh, the last game of the week, sorry.
I hope it's not the last game of the season.
I hope not, because that means we're getting relegated.
That's it. It's over now. But yeah, Man City came with a point to prove. They probably don't even need to prove it, but they were rampant, I guess. West Ham, they were completely in control. And this is a great West Ham side. It's very unfair to say West Ham played poor, but Man City just for that extra gear. Was there any key man you want to know of, Matt?
Haaland would be the easy one. 2 goals on his debut, but I really like Jack Grealish's performance. When he had the ball, 10 progressive passes and 15 progressive carries. Just any time he got the ball, he was looking to move it closer to the opposition goal. And he can do it a number of different ways. He flashed that ability last year, but it is that sort of that end product that does keep letting him down. He does need to start getting goals and assists this season to really show it. I know Haaland, it looks like, is going to shoulder a huge amount of the goal scoring burden, but just for Grealish himself, because he has got a lot more criticism since he joined Man City. He's no longer the nation's darling as he was around the time of the Euros. He does get a lot more criticism now, but that's what he does best. He really does suit that City system. How Guardiola wants his wide players to play fits Grealish to an absolute T. Yeah,
I definitely agree with that. And the thing that I want to note from this game is Cancelo and Walker.
Yeah, Cancelo.
Cancelo and Walker this game were pretty much centre midfielders in this game. And it's quite interesting to note, when you're against a well-organised team like West Ham, if you make the players go wide, then you normally get double-ups. But what I think that they've done here is Cancelo and Walker goes inside. Now the midfielders can't go outside. And that leaves Grealish and Foden 1-on-1 with the fullbacks. That's exactly where you want them. And Cancelo is one of the best players out wide, but he's so versatile. He can go as a central midfielder, and he allows Gundogan and Kevin De Bruyne to push really high up, literally almost touching Haaland. And that's going to be great for Kevin De Bruyne and Gundogan are both very good at getting that kind of cute little through balls through tight defenses. And yeah, they got everything going for them.
Yeah, as much as we talk about Man City, the Guardiola system, it's actually very, very flexible game to game. And how he uses Cancelo and Walker and the wide players and De Bruyne and Gundogan or Bernardo Silva, whoever's playing in there, they make very subtle changes week to week about the positions that these guys take up that just make them such an impossible team to play against. They can hit you and hurt you in so many different ways, and they do week in, week out. And that's why teams can never really get a grasp on what they're doing and consistently, shut them down.
Yeah, exactly. And they've got this solid foundation, and now they brought HAALAND in. JC, talk about the new boy.
City are going to be tough to beat, purely because they can score goals at a whim. I think HAALAND, obviously, like, we all know, like, he's quality, and we all know he's one of the best young strikers in the world, or best striker full stop in the world. Seeing him like firsthand in a full game that I want to watch is mental, just to see how he runs into the box, how fast he is. He's 6'5", and I think it's that same thing with like Usain Bolt, where his stride is so long. Plus, he's not super hench. He's very fast, basically, and I think you saw that in the penalty where he got just ahead of Areola to win it, and HAALAND does what he does.
It is weird because he does. You're right. It's a deceptive pace that he's got, because he often seems to have this sort of awkward stride about him, but I think he genuinely still surprises defenders with his quickness, because it's not just his out and out pace; it's just his quickness in short spaces as well, and getting across defenders, making runs. The number of chances this City team creates, and
XG as well.
Yeah, and his second goal, the one from open play, is the one that should really, strike fear. Was that, we're so used to City just slowly, matriculating the ball forwards into the opposition's box. It was about as direct as it gets. De Bruyne picked the ball up in centre midfield, and it was just one ball in behind, and suddenly they've got that again with HAALAND. Then they're no longer playing these false nines, and everything's got to be short and. Consider they can just hurt you with one ball in behind once again, and this is just what I mean. They just have so many strings to their bow now, Man City.
Yeah.
Like HAALAND's HAALAND's like this running intelligence is great to see. I love seeing like strikers just run into space, making that run for the midfielders, like you said, like De Bruyne to pass for that goal, but. I think it's interesting that when he was doing goal 1-on-1, he was kind of off center from the goal. I don't think anyone and their mothers thought he was going to miss. I think we all knew that it was 2-0, and I think that's the scary thing. Like, we know it's coming. Teams know it's going to happen. Like, it's not like they're not preparing for them. You just can't stop it. It's going to be it's going to be scary.
The danger is that you can't focus all your attentions on HAALAND, because there's 10 other guys in that team that are capable of just taking you apart if they want to.
Yeah, good point as well. Like Gundogan multiple times running into the box, and then Kevin De Bruyne also making that late run to the box. He got a goal called offside through no fault of his own, obviously. But I think this City team looked good, and like as you guys said, like Cancelo, I love Cancelo. I think he's such a great player.
Yeah.
Like, say what you want about the City system, like he's just an absolute stud.
Well, the City system is that they identify players. Their evaluation of players is top notch. It's not, people just write it off as, any club that can spend 150 million £150 every summer, of course they're going to be good. But no, they actually identify exactly the kind of player that they need. They know exactly the kind of player they're getting when they bring them in, and Guardiola can develop them and get the best out of them. He always gets the best out of players at Man City, seemingly.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Like, last season we saw Man City doing Man City things, and we thought, how are they going to elevate? And the biggest problem they had was after you go 1-0 up, teams still were able to counter attack. They weren't that scared to push up forward, because who's going to run in behind? Enter HAALAND. The game state is now changed after they go 1-0 up. West Ham kind of crept up, even though West Ham played, they tried their best, to be fair. Declan Rice even put quite a shift in. But as they move forward, Haaland's gonna get a space and he's gonna hurt any team in this league, right?
Yeah. We haven't really said much about West Ham. It's really kind of hard, like we sort of alluded to. It's hard to evaluate them based off a game against a Man City team that just seems bang on it at the start of the season. Antonio was quiet up front, very few touches.
He only got 30 minutes though.
You know, obviously that's a product of who they're playing as well. But you know, Skamaka, I think, did he start on the bench? Yeah. Came off the bench. You know, I think they need him to come good. We'll learn more about West Ham in the coming weeks. Yeah. It's almost like the start of the season next weekend for West Ham.
Yeah. Sorry, Jesse. Carry.
I was just going to say, I don't want to put salt in the wound, especially coming off the Brighton game for United, but had Bowen lost the ball like 10 times. I think he passed it a handful of times. Like it was a very tough game for West Ham, but I think Moyes has a very good squad, and Moyes will do what Moyes will do and keep the boys structured. And I think they will do really, really well this season.
Yeah, they could definitely chalk that one off to say, all right, see, he's gone. Let's crack on with this rest of the season.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So yeah, guys, that was the roundup. We went through every match, every detail. Hopefully picked up some nuggets for you guys to look forward to your next week's matches to see. Just leave a like, subscribe, leave any comments you want us to answer, and we'll see you next week. Ciao.
Brilliant. Thanks, guys.
Bye, guys.